welcome to DGI Podcast, a show where we discuss about making impacts and growing our businesses together. I'm Lisa, the Junior Advisor for GIZ DGI, and your host for today's podcast. And in today's topic, we're going to talk about understanding investment and the mindset of investor. And joining me in the studio today is our well-seasoned entrepreneur and a business advisor, Rithya. Hello, Rithya.
Hello, Lisa. Thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you. So the audience haven't know you yet. So can you introduce yourself a bit more?
Absolutely. Name is Rithya Tang. I'm a Khmer American. Let's see. I grew up in the U.S. Since the age of 5. I'm now 51, so
Wow.
You could see that I've lived most of my life in the States. I came back to Cambodia in 1999, and I've been back and forth ever since. Now I live in Phnom Penh since 2020. Since the time of COVID, I reunited the family.
Okay, fantastic. Happy to have you back in Cambodia now. So can you tell me a bit more of what you're currently doing right now?
Currently, let's see, I have various projects. One in Phnom Penh is with Impact Hub Phnom Penh. There, I'm a business acceleration lead. There, I'm helping develop their program in terms of, the training, in terms of the mentoring, trying to help businesses grow. We've got 7 strong businesses in Phnom Penh that are looking for just guidance on growing and additional capital, and potentially for investors to invest in their businesses.
Okay, awesome. So a little bit of background. I only know Rithya through the DGI project. So I know you as our business acceleration lead who advises the ventures and everything like that. But before that, I know that you have your own small businesses before, right?
Yes.
Yes. Can you tell me more about that?
Let's see. To start, to give a little bit more background on me, I grew up in a very entrepreneurial family. My father and mother, once we arrived in the States back in 79, they were working for others, but they wanted to at least have control over, their income. They started a small business, and I started to help them since the age of 12. So I've been working since 12. And through that experience, I worked for startup companies in the States, growing companies. Growing companies in the States is like $100 million in revenue. So it's nothing compared to Cambodia. But, through that experience and having to come to Cambodia and my family, I wanted to do stuff myself. So I bought a franchise in 2006. It was a DNA testing services company.
Okay.
And then in 2014, I had a state farm agency. So the state farm agency, I ran a troop of 7 folks, and we were doing, it's an agency that sells insurance services and financial services to consumers. And then, I started consulting various organizations, just a one-man show, my own consulting company since 2012 with groups like Goldman Sachs, with small business development centers, and the SBA of the United States federal government. And I even opened up a restaurant here in Phnom Penh, invested in family businesses, and just looking at various places to see if I can help.
Yeah. The interesting part is the restaurant. I did not know that.
Yeah. We actually, today we have a hotel. My wife and I, we have a small hotel near Wat Patum. So it's my wife. So I believe in entrepreneurship, and I've had to give one-on-one training to my wife and take chances in her, let her grow, let her learn. So since I've been here, we've done a variety of businesses. Yeah. And the latest one being a hotel.
Yeah, that's intriguing because so far I know that you are involved in the digital and the green world a lot, but to have backgrounds in the hospitalities and also the pharmaceutical part, it's quite interesting there. And I wanted to know a bit more for your businesses in Cambodia. Is it all currently ongoing, or have you, developed into something else?
Well, since COVID, I've been working for U.S. companies, helping them grow, right? Organizations like the City of San Jose, City of Long Beach, City of LA, helping their citizens find money and having them write really good business plans and grow. So I've been doing that remotely. And since COVID, it was easy. I think it was only this year that I wanted to find something in Cambodia. And I'm just scouting. One of the reasons why I'm at Impact Hub is really just to give back to small businesses here and show them what I know in terms of helping small businesses since 2012, right? In the U.S., variety of business from, white people, Black people, Hispanic people, a few Asian people. So I've got such a great background. I wanted to give back, and Impact Hub seemed like a really great organization that has good leaders, and to also make really good strides in helping small businesses. So I'm looking at them. I'm also looking at really investing myself in these businesses if I feel there's a good match. I mean, you know, in the conversation, you're going to ask me in terms of the types of folks that, you know, would fit in terms of investments, being quote unquote investment ready.
Yeah.
So I'm doing that on a personal basis because I've invested in businesses via my wife, you know. She's done sort of retail shoes, she's done makeup, she's done, of course, land investing. That costs a lot of money. We've rented, I have another place that we rent and they do business. And now we're in hotel. We had an opportunity to acquire 50% of a hotel. And so we've got that. And that was just this week.
Okay, perfect. So I think the businesses that you own are considered like a smaller scales, right? You'd say?
Yeah, essentially they're smaller scale. I think, you know, the business I owned in the past, it was a State Farm agency that was making me like $5 million in revenue a year. So in the US, that's a decent small size.
Yeah. So I would say since you have a lot of experiences in owning business and also supporting a lot of businesses in different sectors or industry in Cambodia here, do you foresee or like do you see observed any common challenges that the startups or the SMEs in Cambodia they have?
Absolutely. I mean, you know, I've owned my own businesses and I've also worked in private equity here in Cambodia from like 2008 to 2012. So about 4 years based here. And that was when, you know, the stock market was about to go up. There were a lot of money from overseas, but, you know, I came with that flow, but, you know, the market tanked. Right. During my experience in trying to build pipeline of investments in 2008 and to today, I mean, there's a lot of common challenges for SMEs here that I see, at least from both a local and an international perspective. It's one being transparency. Of course, because there's a lot of information out there, whether it be for cost or whether it be for processes with licensing and whatnot. Transparency is a bit lacking, although it's improving. I think there's a huge jump from 2008 to today's time, 2025, in terms of the advancements of the transparency and available resources. So the typical challenges is transparency, it's communication. It's really how information is broadcast from leaders to the workers, right? In terms of having the concerted and, you know, unified goal of the business, how they want to grow, how they're growing, and what are the things that they need to do to either reach their level of growth or reach the owner's vision. So that's another challenge. And I think always it's, you know, whether it's Cambodian businesses or U.S. businesses, it's always understanding their numbers, understanding how much money comes through the door and how much money they have to spend on either today's expenses and future expenses.
So I would say like the biggest two challenges is the transparency and the financials controlling.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Is it something that you also faced during your time running the businesses? Or?
Absolutely. I think I'll share the experience in Cambodia. Cambodia back in I opened the business like in 2009, right? I certainly didn't feel comfortable doing the business myself. But believe it or not, I was the most experienced out of my partners. The other partner was a white American and the other partner was a Khmer American also. And I spoke the best Khmer, believe it or not. And gosh, we all took a gamble, I think, because we were investments. The other folks were in banking, ANZ Bank, and we took a chance in opening a restaurant just to have a safe environment for us to go to. Because back then I was in my 30s and I was doing business development, trying to bring in new investors and trying to court local opportunities. So we wanted an environment where we can control the food, the service, and just the privacy of it all. Because back then, again, we would go to brown coffee. There weren't any Starbucks back then, but it was really brown coffee. But there was maybe 2 or 3 branches back then. So we wanted a place where we can eat and have a good meal, have business, talk business, control the environment, and be able to at least, spend the money at our place. So that was sort of the concept, and it worked. It worked for a period of time. I think it was really having good partners that would say and do what they would say. Yeah. I think that was the biggest challenge, because the partners really didn't understand Cambodia. They didn't speak Khmer as well as I did. And I understood the numbers. I knew the numbers well. I ended up sort of having to do everything, whether it be, some of the guys, one of the guys did, bring customers to the place, marketing. I wasn't big on, I didn't have a Facebook account back then. Back then, Google Maps wasn't a big thing. And I think, the challenges we face again was always about getting new clients through the door, understanding the tax system, the licensing system, and all that. I had to rely a whole lot on local talent. I had to rely a whole lot on local advisors on things, and trusting them on stuff like that. And of course, because we weren't there all the time, there was theft in terms of money. There was theft in terms of inventory and this and that, and the partners weren't committing to the business. So, those were the challenges as a small business back then. Nowadays, I think the ecosystem is a bit more mature in terms of resources, in terms of, websites saying these are the things that you need to pay for, GDT going online. Back then, you just didn't know what to do as a business owner.
You just have to figure it out yourself.
Yeah. And those are the traits. Those are the traits of entrepreneurs, being able to take the chance. Because you don't know, it doesn't mean that you're going to be scared. So that's what I admire still about local entrepreneurs who will take chances. And even though that, they're not making that much money, they make much more money elsewhere, they're still going to go at it.
So you would say, like, in the early 2010s, there weren't a lot of support systems available to you, right?
Absolutely not. Oh my gosh. I remember when I was recruiting for really talent and also small business to look at, I actually poached somebody from an association, the SME association, right? That was my go-to. That was building the pipeline. I couldn't go online and search what businesses were in existence. Google was there, but not a lot of Cambodian businesses had websites at all. So it was really, really tough to get resources. I think even the SME, when I interviewed and asked the gentleman that I wanted to hire what was available, it was, not very much. Don't say that.
Yeah. So it's more relying on people and people that you can trust. But hopefully now there's a lot more, resources available out there for everybody to find. So, coming back to the investment readiness thing. So, currently we are giving a lot of supports to our ventures, the sub ventures for the DGIx program. And during this support, I think one of the first questions that comes up is that how do we make these ventures more investment ready? Yeah. Can you share a bit more about that from your perspective?
It's tough. Business is tough, and working with people is tough. Every entrepreneur is uniquely different. I've worked with probably over 500 entrepreneurs myself, individually, one-on-one, right? And to say that there is, a solution for everyone that's standard, there isn't, right? But we can do a few things in terms of the approach, right? The approach, one, is knowledge, providing that level of understanding of what accountants do, of what sales is like, of, managing, leading, and all that. So knowledge is one way to go about in terms of helping small businesses, right? Rather than, them taking time off, going to school, MBA, all that, because that takes a lot of time. That sometimes is worthless, right? Because there's a lot of theory is not practical. So providing that information is very critical. But then, sometimes there's a disconnect between information and their level of understanding, right? So there's always got to be a need of some sort of intermediary or sort of consultant. You want to call it consultant, you want to call it mentor, you want to call it advisor, somebody that bridges the gap of communication of what this knowledge means and how that knowledge affects their business, or what they can do with that knowledge. How can they take advantage of that information and adopt it and use it for them to be more efficient, for them to make more money, for them to get more revenue, for them to lead and do whatever better, right? So, the Accelerated Program and Impact Hub does do both, right? Because I've been with other accelerated programs like KE and whatnot, right? And there's no big emphasis on the mentor or advisor part, because there's a lot of information that gets released from the accelerators in the organization. It's all information, but you don't really know how the business owner takes that information, whether they can understand how it's relevant to either leading or communicating better or even improving their financials better, right? So the advisor piece is so key for me in the Impact Hub program that, they're spending the estimate is about six months with the businesses. And that, because I've been on the seat of the entrepreneur, right? To have somebody that's right over your shoulder to look at what you're doing and just communicating with them, say, hey, I'm facing a tough point right now, or, I've got this employee who's giving me attitude. How do I deal with that? And just looking over your shoulder and say, this is what I would do, right? These are the things that you could do, or I can help you in terms of communicating on this and just sit by the side and coach you through it, right? The advisor piece is so important. The access to capital, the third piece, the money or being investable piece, right? That is really dependent on each business's stage, whether they're ready to receive money, whether they want to receive new monies, or whether they want to have a new sort of partner in their ownership, right? Not a lot of businesses are ready for investments. Not a lot of businesses want investments. So those are the three types of things that I feel is sort of the standard in accelerators. I think it's really just the type of information, the advisor talent, and also just helping them do something, helping businesses do something in terms of finalizing that plan or that map for growth and seeing it, how it can be implemented, or advising them, this is how you would do it, step 1, step 2, step 3.
Yeah. But speaking of business, I myself am not a business person yet. So I'm just wondering a lot about the mindset of the startups, because I would imagine when they have a good idea, they want to expand it and they wanted to make it even bigger by bringing in, lots of investors, a lot of money, a lot of other resources. But is it something that they should be thinking about at the beginning of their ideation, or is something that they should be thinking about when their business is booming a little bit?
I think it's different for different environments. So in the States, you could sell your idea even though it hasn't been born, right? The idea, the concept. I think they're used to seeing the ecosystem for startups there is so mature, whereby, they look at the idea and the concept, they read through all the details of the plan, they look at the individual and the team that they're going to build, and they can say, yeah, that can work, right? So the idea, understanding the business plan, understand the team caliber and capacity to execute the plan, yeah, that can work to an extent as long as you understand the history of the individuals, right? And you understand sort of the market opportunity. But in Cambodia, it's a bit different. Right? It's a bit different because of the lack of transparency in how things work. Because what happens in the States, if you see a model that's worked before, let's say in New York, and you're going to Nebraska, middle of America, and say, can that model work? You can see it because the institutions of whether government, school, small businesses, they're somewhat similar. But in Cambodia, the transparency of all that, there's very little transparency. So looking at a plan and seeing whether it can work, it's so murky. It's so different. So it's really hard to raise money off of just an idea in Cambodia. So that's why, and people have been burned. When I came in 2008, right, they're very, very, very small appetite in any new venture. right? We were doing private equity. So we're looking at existing business and saying, yeah, only existing businesses. We got to make sure the revenues are there, and the numbers were murky. So we had to train them in terms of organizing the numbers to, standard accounting, and helping them in terms of, doing goals, training employees and all that, right? So nowadays, investors want to look at businesses that have momentum, have some sort of trajectory that says, it's less risky. All right. So absolutely, in Cambodia, it's much better for you to have good foundation, have good steps towards basically being sustainable, being able to survive the next few years, right? And understanding your business so well that you can just talk about your business, be so excited, and attract investments, right? So it's much easier if you have a business that exists and you're having revenue, not necessarily great profits, but you have a good head on your shoulders, you have a great team, and you have sort of a great business model.
All right. So my next question is about the kind of financial support that exists here in Cambodia for the startups, because for us to aiming for investors, either it's like internal investor or local investors or international investors, sometimes it's difficult. So is there like any other financial support that is available to the startups currently?
If you look at just the finance industry, right, in Cambodia, you have a lot of banks. Similar to the States, is either the debt or equity, right? Debt being loans from banks, family, friends, and whatnot. And you have equity being those that are looking to have a piece of your company in terms of being a shareholder, having input in terms of which way the business should run, right? So those are typically the two options. You have hybrids and whatnot. You have crowdfunding, stuff like that. That's new. That's sort of hot. That's available mainly in the States, but not so much here in Cambodia, right? So in Cambodia, you have great institutions. The government has put more money into helping foster SMEs, get them loans, get them growing. So the loan opportunities is still there, right? Then you have the equity side or the investment side. The stock market's there, right? So they're trying to push the standardization of investments to make sure that, companies should strive to be listed in the stock market. And that's sort of a level or a badge of honor saying that you've made it. You're now a public company, you're transparent, people can see what you're doing and you're going to grow. Other people are just banking on you, investing in you and stuff like that. So the equity side, when I was here back in 2008, there was like 3 international investors that wanted to come in. It was like Frontier, it was Leopard, it was the CamCap boys, all that. Things change. Not everybody survived. You had regional investment funds, private equity folks that wanted to come in from Vietnam particularly. There were a few interests from Thailand, not much from Malaysia and Singapore back then. But they were sort of, once or twice removed, right? There was a lot of international development banks that wanted to foster the investment side of things. So there was, monies from ADB, sort of the Norfund group from, was it Norway? Folks from the Netherlands, the Dutch group. So there was a lot of international development banks that wanted to foster SMEs too back then, right? So what still exists today in 2025, it's still, emerging markets is one of those that still survived, right? So they're now called emerging markets investment advisors. Okay. So they've launched a few funds, and they've got funds particularly for Cambodia, plus a few in the region. Mekong Strategic Capital, of course. The owners were from ANZ Bank, right? And so they've got something that's pretty good in terms of cooperating with Smart. There's a lot of, MPTC. MPTC is a great institution. Back then I remember signing a contract with MPTC for international telecom connection. So MPTC is sort of they're spearheading. Because telecom companies make a lot of money. I know everybody knows that, but I had experience in the telecom industry, and we're talking about millions and hundreds of $1 million annually. So MPTC had this great program to really do a fund to help SMEs, to help them start and grow. So MPTC is a pioneer in all that, and they've even brought in plug and play in terms of, if those that are looking to start, especially plug and play, which is based in a university, right? So fostering sort of the innovation, the excitement and the energy from the university students to the young minds, and see if something can be, grasped and taken hold of, and the idea to sort of implement and execute and be a business. I mean, that's wonderful. So the traditional private equity, there's still very few outside private equity institutions that want to come in. But there are folks that are still here in terms of the few that I've listed. There's Insitor, there's folks that are in Singapore, because Singapore is a financial capital in the region, right, comparatively, versus, Bangkok or Hong Kong, right? Singapore is sort of the place to be. And so they pool in monies, and there's always an interest in Cambodia. Other than the traditional debt and equity, there's always, OCNAs and big business conglomerates. If you have the relationship, if you have sort of family members in those groups, and they're always looking to really help, their expanded network of whether it be by blood or by marriage, to invest in small businesses. Yeah.
For those available kind of like investors, I would say, is there like something in particular that they're looking for? Is it the industry that they're looking to invest in, or is it like specific kind of ideas that they are looking to invest in?
I've networked with a few big family groups, right? It's always being first to market or getting the first license for XYZ. And so they're always looking for that, right? I'm working on a project that's for solar, right? So having a big solar project that can produce in the gigawatts. So that's always nice for both country, right? And for a small business, right? To secure energy, because energy is a utility. People need it, and it's always going to grow. And there's a consistency of revenue. So it's a beautiful business model. So a lot of the wealthy are going to look at bigger projects for investments in whatever areas. In terms of like the current trend and fad, back then it was sort of, we were looking at sort of infrastructure back in 2008, 2009. We were looking in agriculture, right? But nowadays it's sort of impact focused investment opportunities, whether it helping reduce the carbon footprint, helping in terms of improving the forest, helping improve sort of the fish, all this. So impact investments is where a lot of monies are being pulled at. And that really is a catalyst from the UN Green Fund. I think that was a $10 billion fund to help, the world be more green. So I think Cambodia just recently got that initiative where they're going to really deploy the money, right? So it's a combination of combination of qualified investors who've been in the Cambodia environment, right? Looking at projects that is not only just to bring profits, but also help the environment. So that's the new trend. I'm all for it.
Yeah. So more like on the energy and the environmental sector.
Yeah.
But is it something that the local investors are interested in as well, or just the international bigger investors, you would say?
The SMEs are always going to find smaller projects that really help in their day-to-day life. Whether I think I was being a judge at one of the university business competitions, things like laundry, things like, I think parking, parking situation for motos, and just things that are relevant for a day-to-day basis. And those are really good ideas, as long as you can scale, right? So those are the types of businesses from an SME perspective that that are coming that I've seen at the business plan competition, and anything in agriculture, because agriculture is such a huge contributor for the GDP. I mean, as long as you have land, as long as you have product, and being able to have that wealth of experience, so that whatever seeds you plant are not going to be ruined, right? So that experience goes really far, right?
Okay. So, I mean, we talked a lot about what investors are looking for, right? I mean, now the opposite of what they wanted to avoid, whether it's the, like the internal kind of operation part, is it like not strong enough, they wanted to avoid that? Or is it more like of a general ideas of what they are not looking for?
I mean, when I was in investments, and currently when I'm helping small businesses, the primary thing is just human nature. We want to work with people we like.
Yeah.
So if an entrepreneur, a business owner, never return calls, is abrasive, uses curse words all the time, you could sort of see it. Nobody really wants to work with that type of individual, right? You could appreciate the business model, but would you invest in the individual, right? So, first and foremost, investors will look at investing in the individual, because you have to rely on the individual to drive that investment, to make money on the money that you provide them. So the number one thing is just the character of the individual, right? If the character is awful, right, been in jail or does drugs, like, you try to avoid that at all costs. The second thing, with human nature also, you can reflect on how the business owner is as their character. And of course, business owners impress what they do, what they believe on their employees, right? If the employees are similar, right? If the business owner is a great leader, right? And you talk to the employees, the managers, the middle managers and all that, and they believe in which direction the business is going, the vision of the company, and that's really great, right? In terms of a personal, qualification, you're doing sort of the due diligence on the individual and the people, right? You got to make that, because it's the people that drives the business, right? Your business does not run by itself. Absolutely not.
Not AI yet.
Not AI yet, right? Not AI yet, exactly. And then we look at the business model, right? If the business is not making any revenues, if the business is not making profits, but burning cash, right? We walk away from that. Absolutely, right? But if it's a good business model that's run poorly, so what we do is we look at, that's a great business model, but we got to get rid of the CEO, right? We got to find new CEOs to sit in the chair, have this current business owner be, chair or president, something, right? Not involved in operations, or get somebody new that runs the operations or the IT or whatever, right? So there could be really great business models, and when you're looking at business models, you're looking at areas of growth, whether it's, growth horizontally or growth vertically, right? In different areas, growth domestically through different provinces or different cities, growth, hopefully, I don't think I've seen a company that big, but growth beyond borders to other countries.
So, I mean, for you as an investor, I understand that you also work as an advisor, but I would not imagine that all investors are advisors to different businesses as well. So just from your side, what core values or additional things that investors bring into a business besides just funds and capitals like that?
Yeah. There's a broad range of investors. There's institutional investors that I've dealt with that are, tens of $1,000 suits. The time is very important. They have big computer programs that run, algorithms and whatnot to see which companies they should target and stuff like that. I met those. Met investors that are more family run. They have pieces and they're relying on really good team to provide them information. And then, investors that are more hands-on. Like, I think the accelerators and the investors in Cambodia have to be hands-on because there's so much, the lack of transparency is obvious. right? And you'll need to rely on others to get good information or good resources. I mean, for example, I remember trusting a resource, whether it be in the ministry, and say, yeah, this is, but then, I go to the resource, no, I can't do that, right? So relying on really good resources is sort of automatic in the Cambodian environment. Investors will want to make sure, are you part of this or are you part of that? Do you know this? Do you know that? So that, that they have a good footing in terms of risk, right? Business is about managing risk, is about managing uncertainties. Things in Cambodia is more uncertain than things in the States for sure. So investors that are here should provide, a level of resources, because if they've invested enough in small businesses, they understand where the fires are. They understand where all the inefficiencies should be. They understand how to take shortcuts so that, it isn't so much this, but it's just, one dip, two or few dips, right? So investors that should bring stuff to the table are resources, are connections, and not just the money, right? So I think more so investors in Cambodia, they do realize that, when they make investments, they need to be more involved.
Yeah, so, I mean, look, those are great things that investors can bring into the table. But sometimes the small businesses or great ideas are not yet to be visible to the investors.
Right.
So, I mean, for you as a, current investor, where do you normally find these great ideas to invest in or just to take a look at these days?
I appreciate today's ecosystem because there's a lot of accelerators. There's a lot of money going to SMEs from the government, from international development banks, for international bodies, right? To foster, more small businesses. I think that is sort of the fire. That's the ignition, the start, right? People to be interested in opening their businesses. So the pool of opportunities are from these great accelerators, whether from universities, whether they're from private equity shops or investment shops, whether they're from nonprofits, right? So having them help hold small business hands and say, you should know this, you should do this, it's a breath of fresh air, right? That takes a lot of the uncertainty from investors' perspective, saying that, they understand these terms that I'm going to talk about, what's ROI, what's, turnover, stuff like that. So communicating, right, in terms of the same language, investments and finance, it's wonderful. It's wonderful what Cambodia has created with the focus on developing the SME sector, the small business sector in Cambodia. And that's where I think most of the ideas are coming from and emanating. So for them to be more visible to investors, maybe joining accelerated programs. Absolutely, right? absolutely. And I've back then I've taken a look at small businesses under the Oknya systems, those with the business groups. Those aren't always the best. Those aren't always the best to communicate with. Those aren't always the best to deal with in terms of transparency. They're almost very similar in terms of resources. They have a lot of resources, but they don't know how to use it effectively.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, for now, let's kind of explore the different ideologies and mindsets of the business instead of the investor. Because, I would think sometimes people have great ideas and they just want it to remain small businesses. Or, one of the managers that I've talked to, he worked with a lot of other small businesses in the province, and a lot of them don't want to grow bigger. They just want it to be more, family size. In Phnom Penh, there might be some of those kind of business as well. But what do you think about that? About just remaining small and just, not taking it to a national level or a bigger level, putting yourself in the spotlight, basically.
I think it's a normal thing that small businesses face, whether it be in the States or in Cambodia. Because I think, small business is about managing uncertainty. And when you're growing up or when you're an immigrant family trying to run a business, there's so many things that are uncertain. And once you find more certainty and you're making money, and would you want to compound yourself and put more uncertainty in your back, you know, whether to grow to another city, whether to grow beyond borders, or whether to get into an entirely new industry, that's always a risk, right? It's, you know, those entrepreneurs that want comfort and want certainty in their business, they're the ones that don't want to grow. They're the ones that are comfortable with the way things are, right? It's because they don't have the information, right? It's not transparent. They don't have the plan. They don't have advisors helping them understand, and they don't have the money to sort of risk, right? So traditionally, those that don't, you know, that took chances and were, you know, sometimes business is all about luck, being the first to move or having a great relationship with a partner, with a supplier and stuff like that. And they become very successful. They don't want to change, right? Because they don't really understand the nuances of the whole business model, right? So I think the newer generation, you know, my parents, and I've seen like the wealthy families, kids, they understand more information. They understand social media more. They understand in terms of supply chain, you know, getting things from China, getting things from Vietnam or Thailand, and bringing their lower price and selling at a higher price here and stuff like that. So they understand information more, and they understand in terms of whether it be from education or whether it be from accelerator programs, right, to how to put all that together through advisors. And then, you know, whether they have money already pooled from family, right, or from profits, they're willing to take more of a risk, right? They're willing to break off from family and basically taking family's investments and trying things out. And I've seen it work, right? I've seen it work.
I mean, on the other spectrum, so one is not like, you know, wanting to grow a lot of business, just kind of stay safe by themselves there. And then the other who aim very, very high to the international markets. And sometimes they think that maybe Cambodia's market is a bit too small, or maybe not very fitting for their business ideas and stuff like that. So they aim for the international markets more. Is this something that seems realistic to you in the current climate?
Again, I go back to the basics of business. Business is about managing uncertainty, right? And when we are Cambodian, we speak Khmer, we live in a certain city, whether Phnom Penh or Siem Reap, or whether we're in a business, whether it be retail or manufacturing, those are the things that we understand, right? In terms of the policies, the taxes, the compliance stuff for the country, those are things that we understand, right? Now, it's a different mindset, because I've actually been an accelerator in the States to help people export, you know, to go, right? It's a completely different mindset when you go abroad, because it's a whole new set of rules, right? It's another language. It's another policy. It's another regulator. It's another currency. It's another, you know, risk factor in terms of transportation over sea or by air. It's a whole complex thing, and they have to understand, right? So, you know, I could share a story in the States where I was helping a small business. It was a husband, wife, small business. It was engineering. What they did was splicing. So whenever you want to connect internet or TV, right, it's a last connection. They have to cut the wires and to put it together, boom. That was their business model. And business model was going well back in 2012 because, you know, 5G was up and coming. A lot of telecom companies were putting up satellites, antennas and stuff, and they were putting stuff to make people's internet faster, TV, you know, more clear and stuff like that. So they had a lot of business. But it was husband, wife. They weren't getting along. You know, the culture was really hard, right? But they were succeeding because there was a lot of business. And they wanted not to go abroad. They just wanted to go to another state. You know, they were in California. A few hundred miles away was Arizona. They wanted to go and have an office there to grow, right? I knew who they were because I was their advisor. I knew the complexity of their marriage, the complexity of the husband who was raised by an army father, very strict and very demanding, and this, but not very good with employees, right? And I said, look, before you do this, just know that's going to be very hard if you go across borders, because your husband's style is this way and your employees really do not like that type of management and leadership. I said, you're going to risk it really big. You know, the female partner said, you know, I can do it. I can do it. Boom. 2 years later, they had to shut the Arizona office. They had to let go of employees. They weren't doing very well. Right? So it's very hard. It's super hard, right? If you go beyond your comfort in terms of borders. For international, for Cambodians here who do not understand. I've lived in Malaysia. I've lived in Singapore. I've traveled to 9 out of 11 ASEAN countries. I know how hard it is in terms of language, food, and all that. I've had to go in with not knowing anybody to sign contracts with people and businesses. I know how hard it is. And if you don't have the education, if you don't have the social character to, you know, get things done, meet, you know, politicians, meet business owners, meet suppliers and all this, and you like to be in Cambodia only, right? Yeah, don't go beyond borders, man. It is extremely hard, very risky, very expensive, and stuff like that. I know from firsthand. Yeah. Right. So it's much healthier, right? It's much healthier if you grow locally, right, than wanting to go across borders.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, you have to be very, very, very ready to jump across the border, no?
Yes, and you have to have a budget for it. Yeah. It's expensive. Yeah. It's really expensive.
Okay. So, I mean, you mentioned about like the good partnership. The husband and wife dynamic might not be the best business partnership in terms of, like, you know, running a good business. But I mean, for you strategically, what is like a good partner in, you know, growing a business? Is it like the personality of the partners or like specific kind of, you know, I don't know, like organizations or suppliers, stuff like that?
I think it's finding a partner that complements you, right? Having somebody like you as a partner is not so effective. Although some people say, you know, I love myself. I would love to have a partner like myself. We could do so much together and stuff like that. But sometimes, you know, you want a partner that could shore up your weakness. You know, a partner, for example, you know, I think you have the personality types of driver, of introvert, extrovert, and analytical, right? You should have those types of people, all those types of people, personality types in your company. Even as a partner, somebody who is so extroverted, loves talking to people, help getting sales and all that, but they suck at the details. They suck at the operations. They suck at putting invoices to the customers on time. They suck at getting money through the door. They can get sales, but there's no payment, right? So having a partner that says one is great at sales, but one is great at leading and doing the operations. Those, I think, is wonderful. But through it all, partners that can communicate effectively, because oftentimes, you know, when I'm doing contracts, when I'm in terms of provisions and stuff, we got to go through the worst case scenarios. What happens, you know, if we argue? What happens if you get sick? What happens if you have a marriage, right? Will you stay in town? You know, what happens if you go to jail? What happens if you go through drug abuse and, you know, your kid or a death in the family? So a partner that goes through these life events and can handle it and is not going to abandon the business is super important, right? So those are the things that, from a contractual perspective, you have to address before you sign the contract.
Yeah. Is it like getting married too? Like picking a good partner?
Absolutely, 100%. Like the locals, Cambodians here are looking as investment as the sort of the great thing on the horizon. It's shiny. It's going to help. It's going to make you healthier. You know, it's going to bring wealth. It's not always the case, right? In the States, we don't want to have a partner. We can have an investor bring in money, but don't come and sit next to me because I have a certain way of doing things. I have, you know, right? Because if you pick the wrong partner, it is like a marriage. in terms of how you communicate, how you raise the kids, how do you keep the kitchen clean, how do you keep the bathroom clean, right? How do you manage in terms of, adding a new room into your house? So a partner that understands finances, understands communicating, understands planning, right? Understands in terms of showcasing who you are, right? In terms of character, in terms of dress, style, all that. So super important to find the right partner.
Yes. Okay. Thank you so much, Rithya. I think today, not just only our audience is learning a lot. Me too, in terms of, different investors that are available in Cambodia here, and also the climates of how a business is run. And most of our audience are inspiring business owners or someone who have ideas, but they have yet to develop, bigger teams. So is there any kind of tips or anything you wanted to share toward the audience?
I think, for those that have ideas, there's a difference between idea and opportunity, right? There's a million ideas out there, an idea to make that instead of white-green, right? But an opportunity is something that says, I've thought about the idea, I thought about the money, I thought about the process, the manufacturing, I thought about the marketing, I've thought about leading the people. So the opportunity does what we call in the industry a feasibility check, whether the idea is actually an opportunity. Do you have the resources? Do you have the know-how? Do you have the connections? All that, right? So investors, we get pitched a lot. And we can smell the BS, right? If the idea doesn't have details, we say the idea doesn't have legs. The idea has no legs means it doesn't go anywhere, right? So we always ask these questions and just make sure that, you just don't think about it. You actually go out there and get information from potential suppliers, potential customers, right? Potential buyers, potential resources that are readily available nowadays in Cambodia, right? Through these startup accelerators and these, there's so many resources, school, associations, right? So try not to say it's an idea. I think the better word to use is an investment opportunity, right?
Okay, perfect. So thank you so much for spending your time with us. And I hope everybody is learning a lot more from you. And hopefully, you have some more great ideas to observe in the future too.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much for listening to this podcast of Understanding Investment. And if you're interested in figuring out more on how to improve your business, how to grow, and how to lead with a good leadership, please tune in to DGI Podcast. Thank you so much, and I will see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.